Hello, hello. You're tuned into episode 152 of the FlipScreen Games podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from this week, the same nation, come together to discuss the wide, wide world of video games. I'm your host this week, Stephen Radford, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Max Wright.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm okay. For a second there, when you said 152, I was like, "Oh, we missed 150." Then I realized we did like a whole
We did a
2.5 hour.
thing. Yeah, it was a big
massive
thing about
episode.
it. And then last week we spoke and, poured one out for the Xbox 360. I don't know if you saw that episode.
Didn't get a chance to look at it. If I'm not looking at my own face and listening to my own voice, I can't do it.
Well, but before we get into this week's maybe a bit of a downer of an episode, what is your kind of number one game on the Xbox 360 that you would think of?
Off the top of my head, now this is going to be from the little amount I actually played the Xbox 360. Shadow Complex was my number one game. It's the game that I, when my friends had Xboxes, I'd go and download the demo. Then my brother got an Xbox, and I would like borrow that in dribs and drabs. And I bought the game finally after playing the demo like 5 or 10 times, and I was like, "Oh, finally I can play this game." And that is the only game I genuinely played the whole way through on Xbox 360. Because other than that, I was on sort of PC and Nintendo stuff. So yeah, there we
Nice.
go. Shadow Complex.
Shadow Complex did not make our list, Max. I'm afraid to say. I don't
No,
think me or Pete have played it.
No, I was going to say you might not have heard of it. It was if it helps, it was directly inspired by Super Metroid. Is a lot of the rhetoric when they were marketing it. So is that the first big indie Metroidvania from Epic Games? It was big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and by I don't like Xbox Arcade, Xbox Live Arcade, indie. Back before indie was indie when it was that. But anyway, that's the topic for last week's episode.
Well, some other big games that were on the 360 included Halo. And this week, we had some huge news about Bungie. Not great stuff going over there. We've got the question, Max. Is Bungie Dungy?
Now, I really laughed at this earlier. I'm sorry that you're not getting a fresh laugh now because I've already read it. But when I opened the document, it slapped me in the face. I had a good chuckle. It's a good one. That's great.
So
Not to laugh at them, but yeah.
yeah, well, not to laugh, because this week 220 staff, or around 17% of their workforce, were laid off. This is all on top of 100 or so layoffs they did last year in 2023. A further 155 of their staff are being moved from Bungie to Sony, so presumably PlayStation Studios, and around 40 of them will be starting a new studio with Sony. And their CEO Pete Parsons, who just last week spent millions on classic cars and showed them all off on social media and to staff at Bungie, said, "We were overly ambitious. Our financial safety margins were subsequently exceeded, and we began running in the red." So it seems like Sony had to step in. But we've kind of known that they were in a little bit of trouble for a while. They obviously delayed Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
There's been talk of the fact that Xbox had them listed as high risk in their list of acquisition targets before Sony bought them. It's not looking good for Bungie.
It's not. I think it was you this year have it predicted that by the end of the year, Sony won't own Bungie anymore. And while I don't see that happening now because they're clearly having to commit to this in many ways, it's not looking great at all. I don't know if the most recent Destiny 2 stuff is performing very well. Clearly, they're massively overspending. This is another example of why are we seeing mass layoffs and not CEOs losing jobs? Why have we not yet seen a single CEO step down or be fired or have their job cut? Why are we losing out on the talent? And this is exactly another one of those. It's not looking great when not only are they getting rid of people, they're also just bringing people from Bungie into Sony, much the same way that Activision took a load of Toys for Bob people and rolled them into Blizzard to work on, just to help out with things like
Support
that. And
stuff,
then,
yeah.
yeah, which is a shame because these are clearly teams that have got vision and that they're working on things that they're passionate about. Bungie was Destiny was a passion project for them. They went off independently to do it. They ditched Activision, and now they're just being stripped down and sold for parts. While, like you say, the CEO spends millions on classic cars. Immediately, as soon as it happens, goes private on Twitter because he's terrified of the backlash. I've seen people sort of suggest that there's more to this, that that he, people that works at Bungie maybe didn't know this was coming, but they knew that he specifically was a dodgy guy, and that there were rumors of that they didn't like him for various reasons. I don't want to speculate too much on that, but um, yeah, it's such a shame, and it's just really yet another shit sandwich in the year of the shit picnic, really.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of crap at the top of this episode, unfortunately. But um, apparently, according to Stephen Totillo in his GameFile newsletter, formerly of Kotaku and Axios Gaming, he said that the studio is said to have repeatedly missed financial cut targets promised to Sony. That they have been losing money since the release of the latest Destiny 2 expansion, Lightfall, in 2023, and that the after yesterday's layoffs, the second round of job cuts in less than a year, they had long been planned and they couldn't be avoided, even if this year's Destiny 2 expansion, the final shape, had blockbuster performance. Bungie management reportedly concluded last year amid poor sales and a dwindling Destiny 2 player base, it would need to make deep cuts to show Sony's executives that it was taking its finances seriously.
Yeah, I think Destiny 2's obviously run its course at this point. If even the hardcore player base aren't enough to keep them afloat, then you need to move on to something else. And it's a
Which they
shame
were
that
doing with Marathon,
yeah,
seemingly.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, how do we know why that's been delayed or postponed or anything like that? Or
We
is it
don't.
just
Yeah, it's just it just had like a delay. But my guess would be that's part of Sony's larger strategy to pivot away from live service games now. You know,
yeah,
this was all done under Jim Ryan's leadership. It was his thing to set up this like center for excellence for games as a service. He saw Bungie as being at the center of that. Obviously, Bungie came in. They were the ones that did the review work on Naughty Dog's Last of Us game as a service, whatever that was going to be called, and said it wasn't fun, and that they and then Sony cancelled it. So I feel like maybe they put a lot of eggs in the Bungie and the Destiny basket, and
yeah,
it just didn't perform as they expected. You know, they spent billions on Bungie. Everyone, I think, was shocked at the time. I know Pete has been a big proponent saying that if they overpaid, Bungie is not worth this much money. They only
absolutely.
really have Destiny as their only IP.
Yeah.
They don't really have anything else. I mean, granted, they brought Marathon back from the dead after like 40 years, but
Well, that's probably only because they the thing they're known best for, and the thing that they are, their biggest legacy is Halo, and they were like, "Oh crap, we need to dig deeper into this. What can we bring back?"
yeah.
And Marathon was
But
it.
it's not looking good. I do wonder where this leaves Bungie. Do we continue to see them putting more money into what seems to be like a sinking ship with Destiny 2, or do they put that on life support and move on to Marathon? What do you think?
I think that their best go here is, like you say, to wrap up Destiny, maybe wrap up active development on Destiny, move on to maybe still support it, from an actual support way of like patches and things like that. Give the player base like a send off of some sort. So I don't know. Was there something
Cade was
planned?
coming back for one of the expansions. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
the last one or this new one.
Well, I think if there's something new they're planning, like proper development wise, I think you have to just scrap that. That sounds too expensive to do if you're losing money on it already. I think you wrap the game up nicely. You give the player base something to do. This isn't in terms of like the quality or anything out of the game. This is purely I'm looking at this as how do you save Bungie from going under, because they're clearly losing money on this. And then you take the staff that you've got left and you make Marathon the thing that you've announced, and you make that good, you make that an IP people care about, and then you maybe then from that launch into more live service if it's specifically a Marathon live service game they're working on, or maybe pivot into more single player. They need to do something to freshen the audience and bring people back and make that thing PlayStation exclusive so that people,
I
um,
think making things PlayStation exclusive is the problem. Like you make a live service game PlayStation exclusive, I don't think it performs as well. We look at something like Helldivers 2 this year.
mhm.
It's performed incredibly well. It's really the only big title of this year that I can think of that's done kind of astronomically well. And I think that was in large part to being on PC. You mentioned single player experiences, and I kind of feel like that's the vibe I'm getting by these 155 people moving to Sony, 40 of them starting a new studio. I don't think it's going to be yet another multiplayer live service
Yeah.
focused studio. I'd imagine these are probably some of the people that maybe work on the concept art or the story
Mhm.
and things like that. And we saw this week that Sony Santa Monica said they're also working on a new IP, their first new IP in decade. Maybe some of the staff move over there to assist with that. There's a lot of places these talented people could go. It's just a real shame that Bungie seemingly is just dying, and I don't really understand why, because the biggest comparison I can kinda make to another studio would be Blizzard, and they
Mhm.
struggled as well. They struggled to get other games off the line. Diablo 3 had a fumbled launch, Overwatch 2 was a disaster, but their kind of pillar that's always been solid and always been there is World of Warcraft. They
Yeah.
continue to make them money, they continue to release expansions, people still pay the monthly subscription. Why has Bungie not been able to replicate that with Destiny?
I think it's because not only when World of Warcraft, maybe wasn't doing as hot as it was, they brought out WoW Classic to bring the old fans back. You know, there's always something else in the pipeline with Blizzard. It's never just we only do Overwatch, we only do WoW. They've got WoW, they've got Overwatch, um, they've got other things I can't think of now. What else did Blizzard make?
They
They had
did
Heroes of
Heroes
the
of the
Storm for a
Storm,
while,
they
yeah.
have Hearthstone,
Hearthstone, there we
they
go.
do
There's always
StarCraft.
little avenues. StarCraft, I don't think they've actually done anything with for a while, but there's always little avenues. And like I say, they can do Diablo 2 remastered, they can do work on Diablo 4, they can do Diablo 3 on Switch, they can do World of Warcraft Classic, and then bring out the expansions again for WoW Classic to, just these are sources of revenue. Whereas if you just do Destiny and that's all you do, um, and someone's paid a lot of money for you, as opposed to when you're independent just doing Destiny, it's very different. I think there are, especially with Blizzard, with World of Warcraft being like the one of the pillars, right? There's like in terms of MMOs, there's nothing that comes anywhere close to it. Maybe Final Fantasy 14 now.
I
There's
think
just nothing.
ESO comes close, Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, probably now, but maybe not in the sort of the earlier years of that. You
Yeah.
still had that. Where when you want to play a big MMO, you want to play an MMO with your friends, you're likely going to play World of Warcraft because it's the biggest. And I think that. Yeah, I think that I've lost my place here now. I think that Bungie has a lot of competition in the. There's a lot of loot shooters. There's a lot of Destiny likes. There's a lot of Destiny killers out there. Sure, none of them are actually going to kill Destiny, but I think a lot of them, there may be enough of them to pull people away because it's like fresh, it's different, it's like Destiny, but X, Y, Z.
There's kind of only so much you can do with it though. I always felt with Destiny, I got my fill and then I got off and maybe I would get back into it. But then by the time I got back into it, either my friend group had all disbanded because they'd all moved on,
Yeah,
or they were so far ahead of me and they were like 2 expansions ahead, and I just felt like I'd missed out, and I feel like this is either the kind of game you play every single day and it's your game,
yeah,
or it's the kind of game that you play maybe 100, 200 hours, and then you're just like, "You know what? I got it. It was
yeah.
good," and you move on from it.
It is an MMO in that way, isn't it? Really, that if you want to pick up the content, your friends have to then go back and do the old content with you, and then you come up and you're doing the grind. It is an MMO in a lot of ways like that, isn't it? It's just a different style of MMO for a different style of gamer. It sort of tickles those little MMO things for you, but it's in the form of a shooter. It's in the form of getting loot. It's in the form of doing things to get new loot, get new drops, things like that's what gave Diablo 3 the legs it did. It's what Avengers tried to do, obviously, but failed very much at. A lot of games have tried to emulate that because Destiny did it in such a good way. Um, and I think that just having that and that being there, when Sony bought them, they probably bought them to be Destiny, but you need something else in the pipeline. You need something else to prop yourself up if Destiny's not going to do too hot. If you're going to work on something else, you want another pillar, and they don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, seemingly they have been working on things internally. Jason Schreier reported that there was a scrapped Destiny spin-off that they cancelled a year or so ago as part of the last round of layoffs. And that they have said that they are spinning out one of their incubation projects, which is an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe, which is going to be that new studio within PlayStation Studios. So it feels like maybe Sony stepping in and saying, right, you have fucked up. You can't be adults. You've not managed the money. You've clearly gone into the red in a way that you kind of maybe pulled the wall over our eyes, if we're to believe what Stephen Totillo's reporting.
Hmm.
And So we're going to take your talent, your new IP, and we're going to bring it in house. And it's very strange. I kind of feel like Bungie's going to lose its autonomy eventually. I don't think they kind of deserve to have it, and it should just be another studio under the PlayStation Studios umbrella. They've not
Yeah,
published any other games. That was part of the deal that they made, that Sony would use the Bungie name as
as
like
a
as
publishing
a
arm.
publishing arm, that they could then publish games that maybe would go onto other platforms. I don't think they're interested in that. I think Sony realized the PlayStation brand is strong. And then we've seen PlayStation Studios games work really well on PC. They're about to release a PlayStation Studios game on Nintendo Switch. I don't think they're now averse
Oh
to
yeah,
releasing games with their name on other platforms. So I don't think that plan's going to happen. And some of these changes potentially are because of the leadership changes. I don't know that Herman Holst is particularly hot on live service games. Sounds like this action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe, maybe some single player thing, or it might have a
yeah.
multiplayer angle to it.
I think you make sense if when you say that maybe you take that game, they own that technically. You take that, you roll that into Sony, and then you have more control over that, and then you have the Sony recognition as opposed to something that could become a tarnished brand. It could be, you release, oh, Bungie's got a new game, and maybe by the time it comes out, Destiny has, um, gone under, or it's ended, or something like that, and then you have a fan base that's actively maybe anti Bungie, or maybe Bungie doesn't even exist anymore. Maybe they've shut Bungie down by that point. By the time this IP comes out, so you want to sort of launch this idea, this IP under Sony rather than under Bungie, if that's your plan. But then it does send Bungie out to die. It leaves them with nothing. It leaves them with Marathon. We don't know what's going on with Marathon. So I I think your prediction of Bungie not being owned by Sony by the end of the year is so close, because
It's
I feel
probably
like
next year that's going to happen.
I think we're so close on that happening, because I think they're just going to shut Bungie down at this point if they can't
That's
make it.
how I kind of feel it's going to happen. It's they're either going to shut it down or they're going to go, right, you can go be independent, but we're taking Marathon, we're taking this new IP, we're bringing this in house, and you can just go and you can work on Destiny and to your heart's content because it doesn't make any money.
Do you think that they would let them go again? Do you think they would just be like, cool, go be independent again, or do you think they would actually just shut them down?
If it was me, I'd shut them down and I'd take Destiny in house
Yeah.
and continue to operate
Oh,
that.
you don't even take you just take Destiny with you. All right, interesting. I thought they just shut down that as well, but
Well, I kind of feel that there is some life still in Destiny. It can be like a live service game that's come to an end, and there's maybe no new content. In the same way that Splatoon did this, you play Mario Kart Tour, there's no new content happening, but there's still stuff.
yeah,
And
true.
Blizzard does this all the time. We saw this with Diablo 2 Resurrected. There was all of that additional seasonal stuff, and then the seasons came to an end, and they just basically kind of do it on repeat. I
Yeah.
feel like they could do that, still sell copies, reduce the subscription down, no more expansions, but at least then people who are really into playing it aren't left with a sour taste in their mouth, and
Yeah.
don't point the finger at Sony, because I could see that happens. It's like, oh, you bought Bungie, you're responsible for this,
Yeah.
you did this. In the same way that we can maybe see that happening over at Xbox with all the layoffs that happened there, with the Activision stuff that went down. Same thing happened with Take Two when they took over Zynga. They laid off a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Layoffs happen when acquisitions happen because you sometimes do have people in two roles. Say,
Yeah.
does Sony really need someone who is managing publishing at Bungie when they've got their own team that manages that at Sony?
We I don't I mean, there's a reason we probably don't use the term layoff in the UK, and we use redundancy, because that is what it is. Your role is now redundant, and therefore you don't work here anymore. And obviously we pay people off. I don't know what the situation is in America, but I prefer the term redundancy, because it's more clear of what it is. And while there are redundancies that are maybe not as cut and dry or not as honest as you know as others, I do think when you have a big acquisition like that, like you say, there are going to be like three teams that do marketing when there's already a marketing team for Sony, like you say, and it's like, well, why would we keep these people on when we could either fold them in or just get rid of them? Um, and I think I can't remember what the original point was here. I'm not very good at keeping on track today, Steve. I don't know if you've noticed this. Try my best.
It's all good. We'll move on to another closure,
Yeah,
and that is Game Informer. 33 years after Game Informer first printed its first magazine, it's closed, and it's a really really sad way for it to go.
brutal, really brutal.
Yeah, I love Game Informer. I
Yeah.
loved Game Informer. I used to listen to the Game Informer podcast all the
Mhm.
time. I love their YouTube content. They did some great journalism work. They did great reviews. They got bought by GameStop maybe a decade or so ago, and since then it's kind of been downhill. We've very much seen layoff after layoff after layoff, kind
Yeah.
of slimming down the team to maybe a bit of a skeleton crew. They used to get some incredible exclusives with the access that they had and GameStop had.
Yeah, and
And
they had, just incredible deep dives into things as well. The issue would you'd see the artwork and you'd on the issue of that month, "Oh, we're getting a deep dive into this game," and that's great. And I'm pretty sure wasn't the next one supposed to be Dragon Age?
it is Dragon Age:
And
The Veilguard is the
but
final
that's
issue.
not is that actually that is still coming out, is it?
I believe so. I'm not sure though. It may not. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
the
not in a
way it got
digital
shut.
format anyway, because it's all gone. So,
Yeah, I mean, the way it got shut down was terrible.
yeah,
They
really
just
awful.
took down all of the content, the entire website. You can't view any of it. Staff couldn't back up their work. So that 33-year history that was on the Game Inform website, it just exists, and they just put a statement up that read like ChatGPT had written it.
Yeah.
Talking about thanking readers for an epic quest, and it wasn't written by anyone that worked there. It was clearly written
Yeah.
by someone at GameStop or by ChatGPT.
Feels um like real corporate, relatability, it's just awful. And then when I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, when the team actually did decide to write something of their own, and they sort of came back on the Twitter account to say, "Hey, thanks for all the time." I can't remember the exact message. It was, "Hey, thanks for all the time you
They
spent with us."
said our 33-year legacy deserves a genuine goodbye, written by a former Game Informer member. We're heartbroken by the shutdown of a publication, yet we leave with pride knowing we poured everything we had into it. In the words of our editor in chief, be well, play well.
And then because of that,
The Twitter account got
the Twitter
nuked.
account got nuked, which is awful. And especially considering all the work's gone as well. Like if you there's I think it's Alex Van Aken I follow, who he said that they were trying to log on and sort of just save all their work, download their work, get backups of all their work, so they can probably use that to
To get a
get
job.
other jobs. And it's
Yeah.
all gone. It's all gone. It just takes you to the same 404 page. It's one landing page. It's all gone. Just completely. What a brutal, senseless, pointless thing to do as well.
Yeah, it's really horrendous, and I really hope a lot of these people land on their feet. I know a lot of the Informer crew back from when I used to enjoy watching Game Informer's content and reading Game Informer's content, kind of left and created the YouTube channel MinMax. And MinMax is putting out a great series. They're rolling out a series over the next couple of weeks, celebrating the 33-year run of Game Informer magazine, getting a bunch of the old staff members back together. And I'd imagine a lot will kind of join the cohort and the crew over there. I know Kyle from Game Informer's often on MinMax anyway. So I'm sure people will land on their feet, but man, what
Hopefully so.
is yet another gaming publication that's just gone.
Yeah. It's just it's bad enough when it's the industry going, but when the press are going to, and where do you go to find out about these games that are coming out other than sort of YouTube content? It's classic.
You're left at that point just to rely on marketing, and I don't
Hmm.
think marketing alone is enough. It gives you a flavor of what the game is, but the stuff that Game Informer did, the deep dives, the trips to the studios. I remember one of the Pokemon anniversaries, and they went to the Game Freak studios in Japan, and just some of the interviews and some of the documents that they got to saw that no one had ever seen before. The level of access that some of these journalists can get is just insane. They did the same thing when they went to Obsidian and looked at some of the original Fallout stuff and spoke about that controversy with the Metacritic score and what that meant for the team at the time. And there was just so much that team did, and it's a real shame to see just a 33-year legacy just disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah, because I was actually personally affected by gaming media, gaming journalist layoffs. I quit a stable job of 3 years to do sort of freelance for a site that the day before I was supposed to start just shut down completely, and I was out of a job, and I left and gone to do my own thing, and I was like, "Oh, shit," and then since then, it's been closure after firing after, huge chunks of people going at a time. Where do they all go? I started working for somewhere, Gamers Network, I think it was. I can't remember the exact site, Attack of the Fanboy, maybe. Um, and that was a load of people that had started working there, and we all at the same time were like, "Oh, yeah, we've just left here, been fired from here, this, that, and the other." And then I left there because I sort of found another job doing something else. And then since then, I've seen that every single one of those people has lost their job at Attack of the Fanboy, and I'm pretty sure that network, the Gamers Network, has kicked a load of people out, and again done the exact same thing. And it's just they bring them in, they consolidate, and then they're gone again. And it's so unfair. And it's the same because what do you do? It's the same with uh, game developers. There's like limited jobs for these people to go and find stuff. Um, Horrible.
Yeah, there was a story about Gamer Network, and they were selling off a bunch of assets. I think they got bought out by IGN, and so now IGN own Gamer Network, who own Eurogamer
Ah,
and GamesIndustry.biz, and I would imagine Attack of the Fanboy, and so they started laying off a bunch of people.
I didn't mean Gamers Network then. I think I meant Gamers Group, which is spelled URS. Then I've got the two confused. It's the same word. They just spelled it differently, but apparently that's fine. Um, but no, I do remember Gamers Network as well. Again, that's another thing. IGN consolidating everything down, which actually leads us nicely on
It
to.
does indeed, because IGN obviously bought Humble a few
Mhm.
years back, and Humble
Which at the
Games.
time I remember thinking was just like, "Oh, that's dodgy."
I
But
didn't. It never sat well with me either.
yeah.
It's like, so a company that reviews games is now publishing
Mhm.
games, so they can't review the games that they publish, or they do, but there's a firewall. It was very ethically strange at the
Yeah.
time,
And
and
also
then
just the fact that Humble was designed to give to charity. Now they had big owners that needed profits, and it was already amount of charity was dwindling, and now even more is going to IGN and places like that. But
yeah, very weird. So, Humble, the company, still exists. Humble Bundle is seemingly going nowhere. You can still go buy your games from Humble Bundle in the Humble store, but Humble Games put out a statement saying that a few weeks back that they were restructuring, and then everyone who worked at Humble got laid off. There's
yeah,
literally nobody that works there
restructured.
anymore. And their final game before the studio was restructured was Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus. And they have this week launched a Patreon to support the game in these uncertain times, because they literally have no clue what clue.
Hmm.
They don't know if they're going to get money from Humble Games. They don't know if anything's going to kind of come their way, if they're going to get any support moving forwards. Do they own the game? Like, what's the
Yeah,
deal?
they've lost their sort of access to a lot of their, like they said, they've got their pipeline hasn't been restored yet. They lost access to the pipeline of critical systems without warning, so they can manage the game on Steam. Nothing for the consoles. If any patches need to happen, that's not going to be able to happen. What about future updates? What about, because this game was kickstarted, I'm pretty sure, and there are still going to be things that maybe were promised in the Kickstarter that maybe are waiting to come out, as is a lot of the time. How do you get that out to people? Also, one thing about this game that I do think is a shame is, not only was it Kickstarted, so enough people were like, "Yep, we want this game to exist. Here's a bunch of money." Then a publisher comes in and picks them up and basically is like, "Oh yeah, cool, we got you. Don't worry. We're going to publish this game for you." Publisher goes under, so all the Kickstarter money wasn't enough for the game to be, fine, because now they need to do a Patreon too. This team has sort of gone on to do this. Now they're screwed, right? Their game isn't able to make enough money seemingly if they have to do a Patreon. It's such a huge shame that this game's come out. And it was a good game. I beat it last week. I played the whole thing. I think it was Andrew Valentine who said it was his game of the year this year so far. And it is a good game. And it's a shame now that this could be a problem for the game going forward. The IP might be lost. The game might, become unlicensed if and then have to be delisted, or someone might have to pick it up. I don't know. It's a very confusing and very scary thing for them, I assume.
Yeah, they put a statement out on X. They said that, they then want to make it crystal clear it's not the fault of the Humble Games team they work with, because that
Hmm.
team's no longer there. And that they can publish to PC, as you said, but that they can't publish to consoles at all. That the porting and QA support was tied in with Humble Games, and they still do not have access to that. And hopefully they will get access to that. But if Humble Games were in charge of the porting of the game to those consoles, was in charge of the QA for those consoles, and going through the kind of validation process that both PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch require you to go through, there's a lot of work that now a very small team has to pick up and try and solve in a very short period of time. I really hope another publisher can step in and kind of pick this up, but we have no clue. We have no
Yeah.
clue if Humble's going to honor these agreements, if it's going to continue moving forwards, if they're going to get another team in to do it and maybe outsource it to someone. And so that's why they've set up a Patreon. And it really just has been a hell of a week in the industry, and I think kind of just a hell of a year for the games industry as a whole
Yeah.
yet again.
Yeah, it's been a big struggle, which makes you wonder, like, what does it take if AAA isn't safe, if indie, which is currently probably one of the should be more of a safe bet right now, is indie because it's cheaper, people maybe afford it. There are publishing arms buying up and sort of pushing out huge amounts of indie games. If that's not safe, where is there safe? Games are shutting down. Uh, Development companies are shutting down, publishers are shutting down, publishers are selling off, people are losing jobs, games can't come out. Where at what point is it safe? And there are going to be people who play games who just play games. They don't look into these things. They don't engage with anything. They just play the games as they come out. They see the games on Game Pass. I don't know. They have a look through the store. They buy whatever's new, whatever's fun to them. They aren't going to have a clue about what's going on. They don't know anything about all the stuff that's closed down. The fact that Sony and Xbox have both had layoffs. This week, as someone who is, I try and keep up to date with things that are happening in PC and in gaming. I only found out yesterday that Intel has just dropped like 12,000
15,
people,
15,000.
15,000 people, and they've lost so much money. They've been chasing AI, and that's a huge that should be a bulletproof company. It made like $50 billion last year, and they're not safe. Who's safe? At what point can you be? The only people that are safe are the CEOs of the companies that are letting people go. They're the only people that have any security. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big thing this week. Obviously, we saw the stock markets kind of take a massive nosedive on Monday as well. So it is difficult, and but I mean, there's better ways to go about it. Ziff Davis, the owner of IGN, didn't have to just all of a sudden put out a message saying they're restructuring Humble Games. They could have been like, we're winding down, and we're going to slowly
Yeah,
do this process to do it right. And we're going to handle the IP back to the people that create the games, and we're going to help them work to find other publishers if they need that, and maybe keep a support crew on in the short term to do it. Because yeah, I must have been making some money. You didn't have to lay absolutely 100% of the staff off in one go if you decided you wanted to get out of
yeah,
the publishing business.
yeah. There's. I wish I knew. I wish there was, these companies could be more transparent with these things as well, because it would be nice for them to, like you say, if they just said, "Oh, we're doing this," because then we could actually know what the problem is. Whereas, as far as we know, Humble Games has been going fine. They've released this game and now they're gone. And they exist, but only in name, and there's a team that's managing them, but we don't have any clue. I just wish there was more transparency, or them just being honest, or like you say, winding down, or just giving their plans out. Um yeah, wish I knew.
Yeah, the fact that they're not communicating with the public is one thing, but it seems that they've not even communicated with the actual developers of these games. The fact that the developers of Bow felt that they had to create a Patreon just so that they could support their own game, because they're ever going to get any of the revenue from these games, or if they're going to be able to support them and push updates to the console games moving forwards, is a real problem. But I don't want to be such a downer. We are going to talk about some of our favorite indie games in just a minute. But before that, we need to take a moment to thank our Patreon producers for the month of August. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Gabriel Hassamobi, Steve Stompy, Susan Likes Cats and also Boobies, Voodoo Vic, Ty the Dude, and Wackahula. Thank you all so much for supporting us over at patreon.com/FlipScreen Games. And if you want to get involved, feel free to head over there. You get all sorts of cool things. And if you want to support us in other ways, head over to our website, flipscreen.games. You can find everywhere we are on the web, and Patreon, where me and Max and Pete and Sierra are all in every single week. And we're just kind of mingling, we're mixing, we're talking with you all, we're
I
answering
appear.
questions. Yeah, Max appears from time to time, and he finds out all these cool new games from people like Andrew Valentine, who, tells him about Bo. So you should come and join and let us know what your favorite games are, and maybe we'll play them. Max, I
Hello.
off mic yesterday, you told me that you were a bit disappointed with 2024 as a whole, that you felt like there were no real big games that you'd played this year, and that, seemingly there's nothing for you. But
Can I clarify that quickly? It's more in comparison to like last year when I was looking at my top 10. At the end of last year, I was really like, oh my God, I've played like 20 games that came out this year that are all so good. I'm fighting for it. Like, oh, so many games here. I'm like, oh, I loved Alan Wake 2, but I also loved Lies of P. And then Tears of the Kingdom was at the start of the year. Oh, whereas when I look at, we're in August now, I look at my list of games that I've played this year, the games that have come out this year. I've been pretty on top of the games I want to play mostly. And while a lot of them are good and a lot, most of them indies, as we'll talk about in a second, there's not been a lot for me that's been like, yeah, this is great, this is up the top, this immediately wins. There's no like big AAA like games that have come out, which again, AAA is having a tough time anyway. But there's not been these like
Well, I mean,
constant
yeah, there's
big
no Alan
huge.
Wake, there's no Baldur's
No,
Gate 4, there's no
no,
Tears of the Kingdom.
no.
It's like there's none of these big kind of titles that
Yeah, yeah.
we would have maybe expected. And we do have some games coming out in the back half of the year. We've got the new Zelda game coming. We've got stuff from PlayStation coming, like the Lego Horizon game. We've got
Astro Boy.
Astro Boy, yeah. I mean, but still, are they massive blockbusters? It's not a Spider-Man.
No,
It's not a, it's
no,
not
it's a good
not
point.
Wolverine. But we do have some big ones coming from third-party publishers like Ubisoft and EA. We've obviously got Dragon Age that we spoke about, and we spoke about that on the Steam Deck podcast last week. That has become Steam Deck verified, and we've got the Star Wars game as well as stuff possibly from Xbox. Who knows? Avowed's just got pushed into 2025.
Yeah,
Will Indiana Jones get pushed into 2025? I think Pete's prediction's probably going to come true, as much as that pains me to say.
it hurts, doesn't it? It does
It
hurt.
really does
But
hurt.
I mean, it all goes to prove my point here, I guess, that this year just hasn't been the year. I think last year we were treated so well that this year we've had to take a bit of a break. But that has meant that I've had a lot of time this year to play indies, and so have you. I've had a lot of time to review a lot of indies. We've been sent a lot of indies. I've bought a lot of indies. I played a lot of early access games. I've just been playing a lot this year, but it's been mostly indie. So I think what the plan is here, right, is that we're going to talk about some of the indies we've liked this year, just to sort of give it a
Yeah.
a positive stance,
I
right?
I wanna kick it off with "Thank Goodness You're Here" because this came out last week. It's the new game published by Panic. You may know them from Firewatch and Untitled Goose Game, and this game is so wonderfully, unapologetically, and wonderfully just, like, British and hilarious. It's just so funny. There's so many, like, inside jokes. There's stuff about Margaret Thatcher graffitied there.
Good.
There's stuff about Roger being a nonce. There's, like, all sorts of cool stuff there. And it's so funny. It's so honestly so funny. They call it a slapstick platformer,
Mhm.
and it's great. I
Looks like a lot of fun.
I think everyone should play it. It's only about 5 hours long,
Mhm.
and it's well worth your time. I think. I'm about to finish it. I'm on the kind of the final bit, and it's been great. It's been absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I wanna give this one a go at some point. Maybe not right now. I've got a holiday coming up, and I wanna sort of streamline what I'm spending my money on by just buying, like, games that cost £4 or £5, I guess, instead of spending £16, which isn't a lot, but still. But yeah, I wanna check this one out at some point, probably hopefully by the end of the year, so I can see if this gets included in the top list. I'd like to highlight a game quickly. Um, Similarly, recently came out in the middle of July, end of July, called Exophobia, which I played this week, which is a sort of classic Doom style, Metroidvania style game. It plays like old Doom, but looks like a Game Boy Advance game with the color
Oh,
palette and the
cool.
visuals. It's very, very clever. It's a first person, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, it wasn't too long. I played it over the weekend. Um, but it had like it gave me that nice feeling of like, it's rare that you get there are lots of Metroidvanias, very rare that you get like Metroid Prime likes, where it's like a first person style, especially in the indie scene. Whereas I think this is just it had a really cool look, really cool sound. I just wanted to highlight that one as one that's just come out that I really enjoyed. So yeah, check that one out.
The only other massive one that's been consuming so much of my time has been Balatro.
Oh yeah, that is so far currently my number one game of the year, and I don't see anything
Meaning,
surpassing that. I think that is a dead set for our game of the year this year. It might even have a triple, like we might all have it high enough that it sort of blows the rest of the competition away. Unprecedented levels of 10 out of 10.
I can't believe how I'm still obsessed with it. You know, I'm trying to get a win on every single deck. I'm trying to do all the challenges that they've got, like where they give you all of one kind of Joker, and you've got to win the game with that. I don't know if you've done it with the one where every Joker is the egg card, and so
Oh, I haven't done the challenges. No, I haven't done any of those yet. I
oh
keep meaning to, but I like that one with the egg cogs. I have tried that one, and then you're like, oh, I need some money, so let me just quickly sell a couple of these.
yeah,
But you
but
can screw
you get
yourself.
no money from beating the blinds. The
Yeah.
only way you can get money is by selling the egg card. So you've got like a finite amount of cash that you can basically choose to cash in and spend on other jokers or other cards. And is where when you do that and whether you want to. I'm trying to unlock the vouchers. I'm trying to unlock all of the jokers. I found out you can get like additional things like seals or something for all of the jokers.
Yes, yeah. Every time you beat a game with a Joker, you get a sticker on that Joker, and that sticker is for each level you beat it on. So to get the 100% trophy completion, you have to beat a golden rank run with every Joker at least once, and that's crazy. I beat the collection, and that was hard enough. And I thought, I'm not gonna do any more than that in terms of achievements. But
Yeah, that's a mental thing to do. That this jokers and having to do it multiple
oh yeah,
times is just
yeah,
crazy.
over and over again. But it gives you longevity. It gives you something to aim for. I do think that um, Balatro. I can never. I always flip flop on how I pronounce it. I think it's a perfect video game. I think I every time I've spoken to people about it, I'm like, I don't have a complaint about it. It's just so good, has such a good replayability. Um, the only thing I did was burn myself out on it by having too much fun.
Yeah.
Um,
The
but
only
that's
complaint I
massive.
have is some of the controls. I always have to double check. It's
X and
the it
Y.
turns the left card into the right card. I always have to
Yeah,
double check that I'm pressing play and not discard because I've fallen foul of times and wanted to just like smash my Steam Deck.
I lost a lot of that when I started playing because I went from playing exclusively on Steam Deck to then at some point I started playing exclusively sat at my desk or on my laptop at work. And
On your break
out
at work, yeah.
on my lunch break. Thank you, on my
Yeah.
lunch break. Where the mouse and keyboard controls just eliminated any controller issues. But other than that, it was also. I mean, there is a little issue, I guess, where you have like sometimes like you want to press A, sometimes you want to press Y, and it's sort of like when you go into a thing, it's like Y is next as opposed to before when A was next, and it's a little bit
Yeah.
confusing. Um, but again, it's one of those things when you're sitting down to play it and you're playing like 10 hours of it, eventually that
It
melts
does
away.
become muscle memory, yeah, but every
Yeah,
now and again when I
exactly.
go back, I'm like, "Okay, I need to in the right button, but be
Yeah.
a really good hand, like, or 5, I'm gonna get through on, like, one go." The other thing I really wanna try and do on it is run, yeah, and try beat the game in 12 hands. That's how you get the speed run achievement, and I really, really wanna try and do that.
Beat the into hang on a minute. Do I have that one? Let me just double check while I've got it open on Steam. What's
Speed run. You have to complete you have to complete it in 12 hands. Get to ante 8.
Oh, I've got that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm one of the
I've not managed that
18%.
yet.
I thought since I got the when I completed the collection, it was 1.5% of players, and I thought that would have jumped up a lot. Still only 2.2% of players have that achievement, but I think that's probably because the game's probably sold a lot more um,
Just
in
keeps
that
getting
time
pushed
as well.
down, yeah, yeah.
Keeps happening. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a like when that game came out, we knew it was special, but I don't think I expected it to stick around as long as it has in my mind, and I'm still adamant that this is going to be the game that I end the year on as my game of
I
the year.
think so
Sorry.
too. I really just I'm ready for the iPhone release. I wanna play it wherever I am,
Yeah.
and
I've
then
stopped recommending it to friends now because I'm now saying because these are all friends that by this point everyone that owns a Steam Deck that I know has the game. Um, so everyone else I have to recommend it to is now a console player, and I'm waiting. I'm just saying to them, wait for it, get it on iPhone because you'll appreciate it so much more having it with you wherever you are, as opposed to taking up all of your TV time with that. Because it is a game that is better when you are
I
streaming it,
always have
watching
something on the
something
background.
else.
I've
Yeah.
been blitzing through The Office, my like
Hmm.
seventh run through of The Office, while playing Balatro on my sofa in my bed, or maybe Henry's watching Loose Women to watch it, and I'm playing Balatro, and so yeah, just like you're right, it's a perfect video game, and I don't think I'm gonna get bored of it ever.
No. Especially if there's new content coming, we don't know what the plan is right now, but there seems to be hints on Twitter that Local Thunk is working on stuff. He's working on new content, whether it's a DLC pack or it's just free updates. I don't know, but I think there's
I
still
really
legs in
hope
this
it's
game.
I want some more money. This game
Yeah,
was
I
so cheap. I've bought 3 copies of this game. I keep buying it for people who I think will enjoy it, and I'm just like, "Go on, play it.
yeah,
Have
yeah,
it."
yeah. Yeah, enjoy this. Yeah, yeah. It's so good. Um, a game that well, I wanted to sort of also mention before when I'm talking about games that I've really enjoyed this year that haven't blown me away. This is moving on from Balatro, by the way. If you have anything else to say about that,
No,
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 cool, fine.
Balatro, phenomenal. If you've not played it, go play it.
This has been a big year for early access for me as someone who hasn't really engaged in early access that much before. Whereas this year I've played Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, I played Hades 2, and I played No Rest for the Wicked, which are three sort of quite big early access games that came out this year. Alongside there was another one that I started. Ender Magnolia I got in early access, but I'm going to wait until that's a bit further down the road before I actually start playing it properly. But yeah, these are three sort of big games that I've either been excited for or have come out of nowhere and surprised me, like Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. That are in early access. Obviously, they're only available on PC. Um, but because I don't consider those as complete games and you can't complete them, especially in No Rest for the Wicked, I spent like 20 hours in that game and I've only sort of done the chapters that are available. Hades 2, I've not got to the end yet. There isn't actually an end to get to. And Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, they keep adding new stuff to it, so it's impossible to get to the end. But sorry, I'm really like running out of air as I just blitz through this.
Just so excited.
I am so excited. But while these are great experiences, I don't think that I can count them right now as being games that came out this year because they are still in early access. They're not complete products. And while
What
they
about
are,
something like Power World? Because I do think that's gonna come up for contention for Game of the Year. It's gonna be in the conversation as this game was released this year, even though it was technically early access.
I do agree with you, and I'm pretty sure. Oh no, actually, I think Fortnite wasn't available until it came out of early access as Game of the Year anyway.
But
Maybe
PUBG was.
PUBG. I think PUBG just got into 1.0 at but for the just in time for the Game
Vampire
Awards, I think.
Survivors, that was in early access.
Yeah, was that included in Game of the Year? Was that not 1.0
Yeah,
by the
it
time that
was. Yeah,
happened?
yeah.
All right, fair enough. Maybe it can
1.0
then.
hadn't come out then.
I wonder if Power World's had its time. I wonder if people are going to think about it by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think the number of indies that have come out since have far
Hmm.
surpassed. I think we're gonna see some of the bigger games like Helldivers 2.
Helldivers 2
Because
has completely came in and stole Power World's entire thing.
it
Power
did,
World's
yeah.
entire thing was look how many players we've got. Helldivers did that and then some and stuck around a bit longer. A couple of controversies on the way. Uh, but yeah, I think Helldivers 2 is going to be the one of the two games that's going to appear in Game of the Year list. I don't think we see both of them in that list.
I could agree with that. Have you checked out Animal Well yet? It's on my list and I really like it.
Steve, I reviewed Well for the FlipScreen Games YouTube channel.
Well,
There's
my
a
one
56-second review.
did you like it?
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It consumed me for like I don't know how long it took me to play it, but I was really into it. I was really into sort of like puzzling these things out and finding little secrets. And every time I found something new, I was like, oh, um, great, I could use this elsewhere, which obviously is in classic Metrovania fashion. But then that would also give you an idea of like a bigger puzzle. There are puzzles that sort of branch across the whole game and you work things out and you write things down. And it reminded me of Fez, but not shit and not pretentious. It's a little bit pretentious, I'll give it that, but not as pretentious and like up its own arse as Fez was. Fez was Phil Fish just like sniffing his own farts and being like, you're not going to work this one out with Animal Well. There are elements of that, but it's more about collaboration and players working things out together and sort of speaking together. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. Did you not gel with it then, or did you not check it out in the end?
I've not checked it out yet. It's on my list to check out, and I was going to get it, and then I picked up Thank Goodness You're Here instead. And I feel
Yes.
like Thank Goodness You're Here is probably the game I was looking for at the time. It's very low stakes. There's not much effort. There's not much thinking power
Yeah.
involved
A
in it.
Animal Well is one of those games that, like, it's more than it looks. You know, you look at it and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be pretty simple," and then, well, there are elements of it that are simple. It's just, oh, go around, jump around, solve puzzles, but there's also, like, layers to it, and there's, things
It's
to
an
work out,
ogre.
and the world's big. Yeah, it's an onion. It's an onion and an ogre at once. It's an
Huh?
ogre onion, brown with little white hairs. Um, it's 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 a good game, and it's on my currently, like, up there on my list of my favorite games that came out this year. Whether it's gonna appear in the top 10 depends what comes out the rest of the year, depends how I feel towards the end of the year. Currently, it's sort of sitting in there as a sort of big release for me. But I also feel like if Animal Well came out last year, it wouldn't have been in sort of as neatly or obviously in that top sort of 5, because last year there was only sort of more major games coming out. Another game I want to point out quickly that isn't actually indie, and therefore I don't know if it really technically counts, but it is indie styled ish, and is a more indie release from this AAA publisher. I don't know if you're going to guess what I'm going to talk about.
No.
No, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown
You know
came
what?
out in
I think
January.
that's fine. If The Diver got counted as an indie game, I think we could
Yeah,
Prince of Persia as an indie game.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that Prince of Persia: Lost Crown is like Ubisoft's best game in a long time, and I know it's because they seem to tailor make a game specifically for me, but I also do think it's like such high quality, and like it really started the year off with a bang. And I remember when I wrote a short review. Can't remember what for. Maybe it was just for Twitter, but it was longer than a tweet. It might have been for GG app, but where I was just like, just when you think like the Metroidvania genre is sort of like tailing, and you're like, oh, bang, it comes out with something that's like, oh yeah, here we are, we're back again. And while I do think we have tailed out again towards the end of the year with that, some of the races I've been playing, such a special game.
What do you think about Shadow of the Erd Tree? Because I keep thinking that this may be the first year that we see. Well, it's not the first year. Maybe it'll be the second year in a row that we see a DLC considered for Game of the Year. Because we had it with Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Are we going to
and
see
me
the same thing?
me personally, I had quite a lot of DLCs in my last year. I'm pretty sure I had definitely had the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC in my Game of the Year last year. Conversation last year. I do feel like I think we have a whole podcast on this. I do feel like Shadow of the Earth Tree is big enough, good enough, long enough, quality enough, all that stuff, cost enough to qualify as as it should count. And I think it should. I think it's the biggest release of the year so far. It's the highest rated release of the year so far. Um, it's a follow up in many ways to our game of the year 2022, one of the biggest games of the year. I think it won most of the game of the year awards in 2022, fighting against Ragnarok. I think we're going to see it not only in our game of the year list. I think there's a good chance it shows up at the Game Awards, but maybe only as best supported game as opposed to game of the year. I think it deserves to appear in the game of the year because it's the highest rated piece of gaming content that's come out this year. Therefore, it should be counted. But obviously, it's not a game in its own right. So whether that counts is
Cyberpunk 2077 was, I think, in Best RPG. It might not have been in the Game of the Year
that
category,
makes sense.
but I could easily see like Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree going into the Best RPG section. But if we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for games, because I'm looking at PlayStation's releases, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's probably going to be up there, but The Last of Us Part Two remastered does that really warrant getting
No, definitely not. And that's because I
a
just don't think
mention?
remakes or remasters really fit in anyway, personally, but that's just me.
So it's tough. I hope Prince of Persia does well there. I really hope this is the first year we see. I guess maybe Baldur's Gate 4 was an indie, 3 was an indie game, but I don't
Technically.
know if,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe this is the first year we see something like Balatro there, and I would
Oh,
really like that.
100%.
So
I would
yeah,
like to
well,
see Balatro as featured in the actual game of the year. I remember 2018 Celeste did it, so it's possible. It's not unlikely.
yeah, I'd love to see him clinch the victory. It's my favorite game of the
Mm,
year so far, by
yeah.
far my favorite game of the
Imagine.
year. Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I just wanted to point out these games at the end just to prove that 2024 to you, Max, is not all doom and gloom. Yes, there's a lot of bad stuff happening, but there are some wonderful games out there. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I have had a good time so far. I'm just a bit down on what's happening with the rest of the year. You know, I'm down,
I
but
can understand that.
I'm still up. I'm still positive.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment, Max, to congratulate Ray from the community, who today is getting married.
Oh, congratulations, Ray.
Yeah. So congratulations. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. So thank you all so much for listening. If you want to find us and find more, come join the conversation on Discord, join all of our wonderful Patreon producers, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website. And we shall see you on the next one.
Oh, and don't forget that if you want to invite us to your weddings, speak to us. We'll get you
Yeah.
our
So
postcode
that's now.
sorted out. Save the
Yeah.
dates, invites, blah blah blah. You know, we'll
If
come
they're
along.
in, say, the Seychelles and you want to pay for accommodation and flights as well, I'm more than willing.
Yeah,
Come.
I'll be a special guest. That's
And
fine with me.
you know, I'll wear a T-shirt with your company name on. I'm happy to be a shill.
We are brand whores, really, aren't we?
I'll get a tattoo of like the Zune logo or something, you know, like that guy did once before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Maybe if I get a Valve tattoo, they'll give me like a free Steam Deck 2 when it comes out.
Try it. You can only hope.
I'll give it a go. Maybe Gabe's face.
Yeah, I've got my
Anyway.
final handbrake in. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.